Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Babbling. This is our fourth episode, I think. Right? Four. I started doing this in February, March, April, and May. Yeah, I had to do the old math there. It gave you guys a little insight into how my brain works. I had to count things up. I always do that. If someone says like, "Oh, how long ago was that?" and they say like, "Oh, it happened in January," I always have to go January, February, March, to count it up. Yeah, I'm still a child basically. I still count like a child with my fingers, and in my head, I don't want people to see me doing it, but I'll still be doing the fingers in my head. I'm going like that. That's a fun little insight for you guys right there, right off the cuff. But yeah, welcome to another episode. Thank you for watching. If you are, I mean, if you hear me saying this right now, that means you're watching it. So thanks for that, or listening. Probably easier, more satisfying to just listen to it while you're on the move or something. I would assume, because why would you want to watch me just talking? If you do, no judgment. I appreciate it, and let me know how beautiful my face is to look at. But probably probably something that you'd like have on in the background while you're doing other stuff. I totally get that. Don't worry. Whatever way I can entertain in whatever form, be it you're giving me your full undivided attention, or you're doing other shit in the background, whatever way I can be entertained to you is fine by me. But yeah, having a lot of fun doing this podcast. I feel like I really had a sort of epiphany in the last episode, kind of finding his voice a bit more when I started pitching that idea for a JFK Marilyn Monroe romance movie. I feel like I really got into a fun groove there that I had so much fun with. So I'm never gonna do that again today at the end. Just kind of pitch some ideas that I've had for sort of movies and TV shows and stuff. Well, today I'm only going to be pitching a movie idea and a play idea I have. There's a little teaser there, which we'll get to more at the end. But yeah, I just thought that was a fun little way to do it, and yeah, let's do some more at the end. But first, we'll do our usual segments. So first, new bits. Yeah, I thought I didn't have a lot of new bits for you guys because this is like the closest I've ever recorded these podcasts together. Last one I recorded was only a week ago, so I was like, oh crap, I'm not gonna have many new bits to talk about. But actually, I ended up writing a bit. So funnily enough, um. I do have some new material to run by. This first one I've only told twice, and both it's the usual story I tell you guys. The first time I told it got a really big laugh, and I was like, yeah, this joke works. Second time I told it, tumbleweed, crickets playing, all that bombing nightmares. It's a risky joke. Well, I will say that it's out there. I say I've been talking a lot about my school days recently. Like, I was called a lot of really bad names in school. I was called a loser, a homo, the N word. Yeah, I know. Some of them didn't even make sense. I'm not gay. The joke, I mean, the joke itself really doesn't. I'm saying that I think I'm black. I don't even know. It's one of those ones that doesn't warrant explaining. Like, you get it. You either find it funny or you don't. Do you know what I mean? I think it's funny because of how stupid it is. I mean, that's the only way it can be funny, is if you understand that it's stupid on purpose. Because I'm as white as they get. I'm Irish and freaking a little ginger. Like, I'm, you know what I mean? As white as they absolutely get. Um, but yeah, I mean, it comes from a little place of truth. I remember being in school and people tossing around the N word all the time. Especially because I think as a GTA, especially Grand Theft Auto, people, um, that word is said a lot in those games, and Irish kids who didn't know black people said the word a lot. They didn't understand the cultural. I'm talking about, when we're like, when they were like 10, 11 years old. Um, just tossing that word around like crazy. I had an understanding of how inappropriate and wrong the word was because I was like watching Oscar winning movies at a very young age, because I was endlessly fascinated by movies for as long as I can remember. So I was watching like Color Purple and 12 Years a Slave and stuff well before Django Unchained, of course, well before that was the appropriate age to be watching them. So I understood the how bad that word was and the historical stuff behind it, but they didn't. Um, they were literally 11, 12 years old. So it does come from a place of truth, but turned into just a really stupid joke. I'll keep testing it out, see how people find it. Um, but yeah, it's a risky one. It's a silly one, but I enjoy it. This other bit is definitely not there yet, but there's something really funny here. I think is I'm talking about cereal, and I say like I'm trying to eat better. I used to be a really big sugar cereal guy, but I can't do that anymore. Cocoa Pops was definitely a gateway drug. Um, and I say I eat fruit and fiber now, but it's so underwhelming. Eating fruit and fiber after years of having sugar cereal is like suddenly having a stepdad. Because fruit and fiber really tries a bit too hard sometimes, whereas Frosties will just fill you with calories and send you to bed. I thought this was breakfast. At least my mom's happier. Um, so yeah, that's the joke so far. I'm trying to find an additional angle to it where I talk about how like fruit and fiber, the berries in it are obviously fake, but it feels better to pretend that it's real, which is very similar to a stepfather's love. I don't know. There's something there, I think. But it's definitely not finished yet. By no means, it's still in early development. But if I just find a clear comparison between the fruit and fiber and having a stepdad, I don't know. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, like your real dad is a sugar cereal because it's not good for you and it shouldn't be around, but you just love it so much. It makes you feel nostalgic. There's something there. It's not ready just yet, but I don't know. I'm enjoying tinkering with it. I love the process of working on new material. Like it can obviously sting to tell a joke on stage that doesn't land, but you have to tell it. You have to get it out there before you can kind of, you know what I mean? Like I've definitely never told a joke that's like finished the first time I say it on stage. It takes probably two or three goes before I'm like, okay, well here's what's missing, or this bit can be taken out. Let's trim the fat here. It takes saying it in front of an audience to really see where the loose bits are that don't need to be there, where the fat is and everything else. So it's interesting. Sometimes what you can think is the fat end up being like the bones, like the good stuff. So it's very confusing, but in a really fun, wonderful way. It just makes this journey of doing stand up just a blast. I love it. Um, as soul destroying as it can be sometimes, I don't see myself quitting anytime soon. It's just a blast. Um, I love it in all its forms. I don't even really care when I bomb. It stings in the moment, but I'm just like, hey, on to the next gig. Watch over that clip and see where those jokes can be better next time, and let's move it on. So that's good fun. Yeah, the fruit and fiber bit is definitely probably my main bit right now that I feel really intrigued by. Like, how can I make this comparison clear for the audience, like just as tight as possible, because I really think there's something interesting in that comparison. This next one is about people who work in funeral homes. I've always been very fascinated by the fact that it is someone's job to clean dead bodies and, decorate them up before a funeral, So I talk about them being like, it must be a strange job because you're literally taking people out of the clothes that they died in and putting them into fancier clothes. You're literally playing with dolls. Like, if you work at a funeral home, you were probably very into Mr. Potato Head growing up. It's good preparation. And you probably make it fun for yourself too if you're doing it for a long time. You probably eventually are like, oh, Maura's gonna wear a necklace. Seamus isn't wearing a tie, he's casual. And Liam isn't wearing underpants at his funeral, he's a naughty boy. The first time I told that joke, I concluded it with, he's a naughty boy, no wonder he killed himself. Too dark, too dark. Learned that. Second time I told it, I just did, he's a naughty boy. Landed way harder. It's cleaner and it's a better way to go. It was just dark for the sake of being dark, revealing that he committed suicide. This fictional person, by the way, not a real person by any means. But yeah, that's a fun bit. I had an addition to it that I'm forgetting now. Oh, I said I'd like to meet the person who cleans my dead body before I die. Like I feel like it should be important that we get to know this person. I'd give them a heads up. I'd be like, just to let you know, I tend to shrivel a bit down there when I'm nervous, and if I'm about to die, probably gonna be pretty nervous. That bit landed both times actually, so that bit's been fun. I then had an additional bit that worked neither times, so it's gone now, but might be fun for you guys to hear it regardless. As I said, if that was my job, I would definitely move their mouths. I'd be like, "Oh, Dylan, you're so attractive. It kills me." I thought it was funny, but the audience confirmed to me both times that it was not. So whatever. It's interesting because the jokes you think, oh, this is the best part of the joke, ends up being the worst part of the joke sometimes, you know? So it's interesting experimenting with that and seeing what sticks and what doesn't. But yeah, where are we going from here? I had the funeral bit, and I had one additional bit about Friends that, truth be told, hasn't worked either times, which is interesting. But hey, let's explore it together. So I talk about how I feel like we should prioritize Friends more. I feel like it'd be so easy to put Friends off because you can be like, oh, I need to go see my partner or I need to spend some time with family. But I think it's important that we put more priority into Friends. I'm talking about the TV show, by the way, in case that wasn't clear. And I will say that show made being an adult look way more fun. Like, they all had inconsistent jobs and lived in an apartment in the center of New York City. Joey was a struggling actor. There's no way he could afford a cup of coffee every day. Phoebe was a musician who had no contact with her parents. Um, how was she paying rent? Chandler fell in love and all he had to do was move in next door. The convenience of this show pisses me off. They made such a big deal about him moving away from Joey. He moved there. This does not warrant an emotional arc. He didn't even need to have a moving day. He could just slowly bring his bits over as he needed them. And I concluded by saying, people tell me I look like Matthew Perry. Now. I don't know. Yeah, I do know. As I'm hearing it out loud, it kind of just, it's a bit obvious. The observation about it being impossible for them to afford a New York apartment with the jobs they have has been made already. I know that. But I think there's something to be found about the whole Chandler only having to move in next door when he fell in love, that whole thing. Because they did make a really big deal about that in the show. Like, oh my God, you're moving away. It's like, he moved next door. You basically still live together. That could be an addition to it. You basically still live together because they do. They're like, they went from being his room is here and his room is here to his room is here and his room is here. It's a very small difference, I think there's something there, and I don't know, I thought it would have landed harder both times because everybody obviously knows Friends. I know not everyone likes Friends, but everyone knows that. Everyone's seen Friends enough to know Joey's an actor and Phoebe's a musician, simple facts that anyone would know about those characters. But it hasn't really landed any time, so maybe it's lame. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I don't know. I like Friends. Let me know how you feel about Friends, because that show has really divided people over the past few years, I've noticed. Back in like the early 2000s, it was still airing. And even for a while after, it was, largely considered to be, a really, really funny, great show. Whereas now people are going back on it now, being like, oh, that show's hacky, it's lame, oh, it's not funny. I prefer Seinfeld, all that stuff. They're all valid opinions. I love Friends personally. I love Seinfeld also. But Friends will definitely always have a more special place in my heart. Because I grew up with it. Seinfeld isn't that big in the UK and Ireland. It got big only recently because of Netflix. I mean, I've only seen Seinfeld in the past year and I love Seinfeld. the person and the TV show. I think it's comedic genius, but it just obviously doesn't have that same nostalgia for me. Love Curb Your Enthusiasm as well. Larry David is just comedy gold, just a god. With I'm not exaggerating, I say that I love Larry David so much. He's just Curb Your Enthusiasm. You have not seen as one of the best shows, one of the funniest shows ever. One of my favorite bits in the show is Larry's just this like very neurotic guy who wears his heart in his sleeve, and there's this whole arc where he stops doing stop and chats. Like when you see someone on the street that you have to like stop and talk to each other for a bit just to be cordial, but you don't want to, and he just like abandons it and stops doing it. And everyone's getting so annoyed at him. Just the way people react to Larry is my favorite part of that show because it's like everybody is just like overly sensitive in the show, whereas he doesn't give a shit. And I love that show so much. There's something so relaxing about it, even though the main character is always being put into these just tumultuous, horrible situations. But there's something like chill and laid back about Curb as well. It has a very kind of like Woody Allen, like slice of life um feel to it. It's just great TV. Get on Curb if you haven't. 12 seasons. It ended recently. And it is so worth your time. If you haven't, it is great. There's a recommendation. I'm doing my recommendations soon, but there's an early recommendation right there for you. It's fantastic. And yeah, stand up tales. I don't have any crazy. I gave you guys all the stops in last month's one because I had the story with Manchester and the gig where I did new material and stuff. I don't have as interesting ones this week, but some fun ones. Still, I did this new material gig that I mentioned earlier. That's where I told the joke about names people called me in school. Um, that one was a lot of fun, but the MC absolutely killed me. It's not like I thought he was hilarious. He kind of like intentionally didn't do what an MC is supposed to do, which is like keep the energy alive and keep people, on their toes and keep them energized. Every time he would go up, he would just tell a story about his ex-wife and how he's currently in the process of divorcing her. And he was clearly being 100% honest, and it was hilarious, and he was really just being risky. He clearly didn't give a shit because he's got some personal stuff going on. But everyone was on his side, and they're just digging his sincerity. When someone's just like wearing their heart on their sleeve that much, you can't help but admire it and be right there with him. And he was hilarious, but he was so like, anyone who's been to a comedy show, the MC is usually very like, we're all having a good night so far, keep it going for you. He wasn't doing any of that. He was just being like, oh yeah, Tinder's great. You know how I know Tinder's great? It's how I met my ex-wife. Just like shit like that. It was fantastic. I loved it. It was like in between every comedian was this guy just doing a little mini counseling session for himself, and it made me laugh so hard. It was great. I didn't do too well at that gig, to be honest. I did it like all new material, and it was just like it was the jokes I just told there. But in their first form, so not even as well written as what I gave you just there, like worse. But it's fine. It's all part of the parcel. Um, oh yeah, this next story is I was hosting this gig that I guest MC quite a bit now actually in Kentish Town called Quintessential Comedy. Brilliant night ran by Dave Lynch. Honestly, probably my favorite night in London. But I MC it a lot now actually. So if you're ever around Camden or Kentish Town, check it out. It's every second Thursday. I think it's the second and the fourth Thursday of every month. And I've emceed like close to 20 times now, I would say. Well, maybe more like 14, 15 times. But yeah, always love doing it. But there's this guy there, this comedian who I won't say his name, but he does a bit where he takes his shirt off, but he's like a well-built like man who clearly takes care of himself. So it's not funny because comedians can't win. There's no humor to be found in you winning, and you being muscular isn't that funny. I hope he doesn't watch this because I'm just being honest about how I feel about his act. But it's like Bert Kreischer famously takes his shirt off on stage, but he's fat, so that's why it's funny, because he's an overweight man who clearly drinks too much beer. Whereas if you're fit, I don't care. I don't want to see your abs. You're doing stand up. Anyway, this guy um did that bit, and he was like, I think I need some oil. He added a new part to it. I think I need some oil. Do you guys think Dylan should rub some oil on me? And they all go, wow! He gets me to go on stage and fucking put oil around him. I literally like did like a little bit in his back, and then like went to leave. And he was like, whoa, we're gonna need more oil than that. And I just his whole fucking body. Um, and yeah, took over after because I'm hosting this thing. I take over afterwards, and I grab the microphone. The microphone is covered in oil. The whole fucking stage is covered in oil at this point. It's an absolute mess. I'm covered in oil. My beard is like glowing with the lights and the oil on it. And I say, whew, I feel a bit weird after that. I think I gotta call my dad. So that was good fun. The oil did not leave the stage for the rest of the show, and it was an absolute health hazard, and could have been a fire, and it was ridiculous, but it was funny, and no one was harmed in the process, except for my sexual orientation. Nah, it was good fun. Great gig. Check it out. They have an Instagram page called Quintessential Comedy. It's the same way you spell quintessential, but with two N's. So yeah, as in Quinn. Brilliant gig. And my final story. Oh yeah, I did this gig in Covent Garden, which can sometimes be a rougher gig. It's just in a bar on Sunday nights. It's a good place to like run some shit, especially newer stuff. But it's a rougher gig. Everyone there isn't there to see comedy. They're just like drinking in the bar, and then comedy is thrown at them, which is a system that's kind of rigged against you, really, when the audience are not anticipating stand up. They want to talk with their friends, and suddenly you're there with a microphone, like, hey, want to hear about my life? you know? But we did that gig, and slowly the whole audience left, so we decided to just go out barking for a new audience. Which is always terrible as well, having to go outside the bar being like, you guys want to see some stand-up comedy? You want to hear about my love life? Or you want to hear about my relationship with my dad? Terrible. But we managed to get one couple in. The woman had very, very broken English, and especially for me and another Irish comedian, she was just not understanding a word we were saying. But the guy, bless his soul, was actually pretty up for it, pretty up for comedy. So it ended up being a show of like 6 comedians performing to just him, because the woman just didn't really. She could speak English, obviously. She was dating this guy, but she didn't really seem to understand the jokes. I think her sense of humor is probably very different where she's from. I'm not sure, but nothing was really landing with her. But the guy was fun. He was fun. I mean, he was talking with us, which is what you should do when it's that small of an audience. And he was addressing how awkward it was that you're like all just doing comedy for me because my lady here is hopeless. And it was funny, but it was so freaking weird. Like I think it was six. We were 6 comedians putting on a show for one guy. Like, if that isn't a reminder that you're in the amateur phase of your career, I don't know what is. But it was fun. We all made the best of it, including him. He was a gem. He was good fun, and he was also. But that's what you need for stand up at 9 p.m. on a Sunday night. You need someone drunk who's just down for a bit of laughter. Um, I mean, literally, as I mentioned, we did a show right before the audience. There was probably like 8 people there, and they sucked. They were just so not down for humor. Performing to just him was more fun than performing for those 8 or 9, 10 people. So goes to show, it's not about the crowd. It's not about how big the crowd is. It's about how interactive or just listening and up for the banter the people who were there are. Because that was one guy, really, one and a half. The lady was nice. She just didn't really know what we were talking about. Yeah, it was a fun memory. It was funny. We were all just laughing like, what are we doing? One of those situations. But we all wanted to do our time. We all wanted to run our material. And this one guy was there to flatter us. God bless his soul. Yeah, it was good fun. But they'd seen The Lion King. I remember they because the theater where he played is very close to sorry, the bar where he played this show is very close to the theater that shows The Lion King. Has been showing The Lion King for years. They had just seen The Lion King, and I was like, if I was to be any character in The Lion King, who do you think I'd be? And he said Simba. And I was like, oh, that's quite nice. Why Simba? He's like, because you're a young boy on the up and up. I was like, ah, love that. Great answer. I was like, oh, I thought I'd be like Pumbaa or Timon or something, or Rafiki, Rowan Atkinson's character. But I was like, Simba? I'll take Simba. Thought I could have been like Mufasa, like a masculine, manly, like leadership figure. That's what I thought, but didn't seem to be how he felt. Anyway, but yeah, those are fun gigs. Fun little crazy stories to remind you that you're in the weird phase of the old stand up career. That's for sure. The early humble beginnings. But yeah, let's get on to our recommendations, guys. Things that I watched or read or listened to, whatever, recently. Seen a lot of content recently. Actually, I've had just I've been seeing movies before gigs recently. I've been really enjoying that because it's nice to just totally detox before doing a set. I've been enjoying that. But yeah, recently I've seen Furiosa. And I know plugging big Hollywood movies might not be the way to go, but it's not doing very well in the box office so far, and that's so unfortunate because it's such a wonderful film. It is just stunning. For those of you who don't know, it's a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. Anya Taylor-Joy is playing a young version of Charlize Theron's character from that movie, absolutely brilliantly, might I add. And George Miller is just insane. You can just tell he does not take any shortcuts, any half measures. He works hard to make every scene pop as much as it possibly can, and it shows in every frame of the movie, every scene, every moment. There's just not a beat wasted. I mean, the movie is nearly 3 hours long, and there's nothing I would have taken out. Like, it's all just there for purpose and it serves the story brilliantly. Oh, it's just a beautiful film. I'd highly recommend. And Chris Hemsworth is amazing in it. I was a bit distracted at the beginning because he has a very different nose. Like, they clearly did some prosthetics to it just to make him a bit uglier, to make him, I guess, more believable as a villain. Um, that was distracting, is because he's obviously such an iconic actor that um, it's so obviously not his real nose. And it's just one of those unfortunate things that, like, it's Chris Hemsworth is so famous that it's hard for him to play a character, even though you can tell he really wants to do more kind of character roles like that, because you can tell he's having a blast in this movie. And I had a blast watching him in it. You get used to the nose after a while, but it definitely was distracting at first, just because you're so aware, because, we've seen him play Thor 20 times. That's not his real nose. But you get into it eventually. He's so good in it. The most Australian he's ever been. I mean, he's not doing his real voice, obviously. He's doing a very, sort of nasally, very villainy, slimy, evil Australian accent, but he does it so fantastically. He's just chewing the scenery. And you can really see it was something that he was, like, dying to do, like, playing a flawed villain character, and also as an OTT villain. He's having the time of his life in it. It's so much fun to watch. Yeah, between him and Anya Taylor-Joy, just like so much fun. Just a good movie. George Miller does a great job kind of balancing out those movies. Like, the stakes are high and you feel the drama, but they still have a lot of fun. He gets that balance really perfectly, but the humor never feels like it's distracting from the drama. It just kind of adds to it. These people are in the worst possible situations they can be in, but there's still laughs along the way. It's I love Furiosa, as you can tell. Highly recommend. So Challengers as well. I really, really, really like Challengers up until the last, honestly, 2 minutes. It's probably a spoiler. It's a vague spoiler. I just think the ending is a bit flat, basically. But the rest of the movie really good. It's told in a non-linear fashion, in that kind of Christopher Nolan way, which makes it a lot more interesting. I was kind of thinking as I was watching, like, oh, if they didn't do the time loop thing, this movie wouldn't be as interesting. But that's fine. They found a way to make the story as interesting as it could possibly be, and the way to go with that was doing these time jumps. Um, it's done so well because things get revealed at different times, and you're like, oh, that's why that happened earlier, because this thing happened in the past. And it's very cleverly done. The two male actors in it are really, really good. Zendaya is fantastic, and a very, very sexy lady, might I add. For sure. Nobody would disagree with me there. I think everybody's attracted to Zendaya. I think my mom is attracted to Zendaya. But yeah, it's a fun movie. It's got some good kind of thriller elements to it. It doesn't keep you at the edge of your seat because you're just like, I don't know, where's this going? I don't know how these people are going to get out of this situation. And yeah, just a fun thriller's probably not the right word. It has thriller elements to it. It's a sports drama, um, but sports is probably the least interesting thing about the movie. It's more so the dynamics and the cheating and the cuckolding going on in it. Yeah, I guess I'm only realizing this now, but I guess it kind of has a tone very similar to the movies that Michael Douglas did in the late 80s, early 90s. Those kind of like erotic thrillers. That's what it is. It's an erotic thriller, like Fatal Attraction and what's that other one he did? Basic Instinct. It kind of has a tone similar to those. I'm only realizing this as I'm talking to you, and it's like, oh fuck yeah, that's what it was. It's like a throwback to those kind of, yeah, they don't make those movies anymore really. Yeah, those erotic thrillers. That's absolutely what it is, because it's suspenseful, and it keeps you thinking and guessing, but it also has a lot of very sexy bits, you know. So interesting movie. I had a really good time with it. So it's really cool to see something very original starring A-list actors, you know. Well, Zendaya is the only A-lister, but the other two actors are popular and on the up and up, and very, very talented men. I'm sure they'll get more great roles after this because they deserve it. They're both really, really good in it. Yeah, worth the watch. What else did I watch recently? Good Grief. Good Grief was a stunning film. Totally fell off my radar. It's written, directed, and starring Dan Levy, who you know from the show Schitt's Creek. He's Eugene Levy's show and Eugene Levy's son in real life. And Good Grief is his directorial debut, his first movie anyway. I think he directed some episodes of Schitt's Creek. It's his first movie, and just a stunning. Sorry, there's noise in my hair now. I want to fix it. Just a stunning film. He plays a gay man who loses his husband to a car crash, and it's just about the aftermath of that whole situation. And it's just really it's so full of heart and good intentions and love and care, and it's just about grief, and it just touches on grief beautifully. It's still funny too, and just yeah, it really touched my heartstring in a beautiful way. I thought Dan Levy was fantastic in it. His friend in the movie, his male friend, was great too, and oh my god, Ruth Negga, who is just a sensational Irish actress. I always love seeing Irish people killing it. Obviously, she's so good in it. My first time ever seeing her play a character that I would assume is fairly close to who she is as a person. She's just a great character actor. Like, she's great in that movie Loving and stuff like that, where you know she's obviously doing accents and everything. She was in that show Love Hate also, which was a huge drama series in Ireland. But in this, she was just her own accent and just kind of like being silly a lot, and I felt like it's probably not too far off who she actually is in real life. But it was wonderful just to see that. I hope she gets more parts like that, 'cause she's wonderful in it, just kind of being a comedic, sort of manic pixie dream girl vibe to her character, which is interesting because Dan Levy's gay, obviously, but she definitely had that quality to her. You know, she's kind of like Ramona Flowers, but she's great. I thought she was the highlight of the movie. Honestly, her character is like the heart and soul of it in a way, because she's the only one kind of cracking jokes. Everybody else is quite serious. But oh, I just love seeing Irish actors killing it in such a mainstream. This is a Netflix movie, you know, so it was wonderful to see. But yeah, check out Good Grief if you have Netflix. I'm sure everyone has Netflix. Does anyone not have Netflix these days? Good Grief was just hit me in the fields and all those good lovey-dovey ways. Yeah, it was very very good fun. But yeah, geez, I'm getting very soppy here. Fucking no jokes. This is meant to be a comedy podcast. I don't know. This podcast is whatever it's going to be at this point. Sometimes I'm not cracking jokes. Sometimes I'm just being sincere. Apparently, that's what I was doing just there. Good Grief just hit me in all the fields and all the good ways. What's my next recommendation? Oh, to get a bit sillier, yeah, bumping mics. Um, for those of you who don't know, it was a like I guess a mini series on Netflix. Um, these two comedians, Dave Attell and Jeff Ross. Jeff Ross being the guy who is always like the roast master general in the Comedy Central roast, just like probably one of the best roast writers in the world. He was the guy who Tom Brady told to not make a joke about his manager again. The kind of chubby guy with bald head. Um, but yeah, it's him and David Tell. David Tell is freaking one of the funniest. I mean, popular opinion, one of the funniest American comedians out there. He also has a great special on Netflix called Hot Cross Buns. I would highly recommend. But Bumpy Mikes is a show they did in the Comedy Cellar in New York where they both just roasted each other for an hour or however long. And this is 3 episodes on Netflix as well, and they're all about 40 minutes each. And I ended up liking the first one so much, I just finished the whole show in one sitting. I spent, close to 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours, watching the whole thing. I had a blast. It was just comedy, bang, 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 just sensational roasting. They also bring up guests and they roast them and they roast the audience, and it's just two absolute titans of comedy who are so quick on their feet, just being hilarious. It is so worth the watch if you like the kind of like roasting kind of, the sort of cruel humor that can come from roasting sometimes, but they do it in a loving way. You can tell they love each other, and they're just having fun riffing together. It's a blast. Yeah, I highly recommend Bumpy Mike's. Really, really good fun. But yeah, let's wrap it up with Pitch It. That's what I'm going to call this segment for now. Pitch It is going to be just a segment where I talk about ideas I've had, ideas that I hopefully will get to make. Scratch that. Ideas that I will get to make, further down the line. But there's ideas that require a budget or require, just me having a bit of a name, which I don't have yet. That's why you're watching a video of me in my room on Patreon, because I'm at that stage of my career. I'm just trying to make something of myself. Um, but yeah, these are two ideas I've had. I definitely want to make something of someday. This first one I've actually already written. The first probably quarter of, yeah, probably a quarter of the way there. Um, I'm currently calling it Boo Earns, so it's no mystery to anybody watching this, I'm sure, that I'm a huge Simpsons fan. Trying to point at the calendar, can't figure out my fingers. There's my Simpsons calendar. Huge Simpsons fan. I'm sure that's no news to anybody watching this, but I was always fascinated by, if you remember, there's an episode of season 6 called The Star is Burns, where a critic comes to town to be a judge on the Springfield Film Festival. So that character is a character from a different show called The Critic, and it's like a crossover episode. But a lot of people don't know that because um, that show didn't last very long. And it's meant to be very good though. But Matt Groening was adamantly against making that crossover, so much so that he's not even credited in the credits of that episode. Very fascinating, but there's a lot of history behind like the drama he had with the writers at the time and stuff like that. So my idea was doing a sort of like Aaron Sorkin-esque drama, like Aaron Sorkin made that very interesting movie about Lucille Ball that I can't remember the name of now, but the one with Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem. So I can think like a move, something like that, like a drama set in a comedy writer's room, about the drama of Matt Groening not wanting this episode to be made. It was very interesting. They got that far despite the fact that the creator of the show didn't want it to happen. It's very interesting. Read up about it, there's a lot behind it. Another producer, James L. Brooks, said in an interview that he was being childish. There's some very interesting drama behind it. And funnily enough, it ended up being a great episode. I think Stars Burns is one of the best episodes of season 6. One of my favorite episodes of the whole show, honestly. But yeah, obviously, if I'm to do this play, I have to exaggerate elements because we don't know the whole story. I don't know what was going on in the writers' lives at the time, so I'm gonna have to make up a lot. But that's okay. Biopics always do that. But I see this as being a play. Um, but you never know. I'm having fun writing it currently. Because I know The Simpsons so well, and I know the writers very well. Like the main people involved in this drama at the time was the writers Al Jean and Mike Reese, who created The Simpsons. Sorry, created The Critic, but used to be showrunners on The Simpsons. Um, they work on the show now, but they didn't during the period that they were making The Critic, and then James L. Brooks and Matt Groening being the two producers. Matt Groening being the one against the crossover episode, James L. Brooks being for the crossover episodes. There's a lot of moving parts there that I think could make for an interesting sort of like kitchen sink, like simple drama because, there's certainly going to be no physical fights or anything, but there's a lot of dialogue driven, um, heated conversations and stuff. So I think like that'd be really interesting for the writer's room of an animated comedy show. So that's an idea that's been tinkering around my brain at the moment. I've really been having fun writing and just trying to see where I can take this idea. It's been good fun. Then the other idea I have had is a very big script idea that I haven't actually put pen to paper to yet. I've just kind of written out like vague ideas and notions of where I think it could go. But at the moment, I'm calling it Eternity, which I think would remain the name. I think it's a good name, just Eternity, because there's nothing called that. Funnily enough, not that I know of. That name hasn't been taken yet. Um, the idea is a very like a sci-fi, like a serious sci-fi movie about a guy who gets tested to be the world's first ever immortal human being. And he secretly makes this agreement with this science organization. They're trying to test immortality to see if it's actually a sustainable thing that human beings could go on to do. So this man becomes immortal and is just watching all of his family die around him and his loved ones and his friends, and we see his whole life change and evolve over the course of, in my head at the moment, it's 500 years, which I know would be a very difficult thing to convey in film. You'd obviously have to do major time jumps. Um, I like the idea of 500 years just because we want to really convey that this man is immortal, so he's experiencing very, very different worlds, and different, the world's evolving and changing around him. And it's like the Science Foundation aren't going to bring out this this pill for immortality until this man has reached 500 years and they can see, okay, well, he's good, or no, he's not good. Obviously, the more interesting place to take it will be that he's not good. um but yeah, that's an idea that's like been interesting to me. I've kind of only really written out ideas for it right now. I haven't put pen to paper to it properly yet, just because it's such a big idea that would take time. I mean, realistically, a movie like that's gonna be 2.5 hours long tops. You know what I mean? Because it's such an ambitious story, such an ambitious idea. But it's definitely something that intrigues me. Honestly, even having came up with it, it was kind of like, I'm surprised nothing like this exists yet. I mean, there's obviously projects out there about people being immortal, I'm sure, but specifically like somebody who exists in our own world becoming immortal, and what would that do to you? Seeing everyone around you pass away as you live on. And would you regret making this decision when you have no choice? You just gotta keep living, because you've already taken the pill or whatever it is, an injection that guarantees immortality. It sounds like a movie that can only go in the direction of just pure tragedy and sadness and bleakness. I wouldn't exactly want to do that, even though it obviously has a very Black Mirror vibe to it. I'd want there to be a message of hope in it as well, because that's not who I am as a writer. I don't think. I think I like for there to be hope and happiness and joy in my work, at least at the end. You know, you can have obviously bleakness and dark nights of the soul, it's a writing term. Blake Schneider, Save of the Cat, great writing book actually for younger amateur writers. Um, but yeah, that's an idea that's definitely been, again, kind of tinkering in my brain. One of the best pieces of writing advice I've ever, I was about to say read, I don't think I've read this, I just saw Seth Rogen talking about this in an interview, is the ideas you can't stop thinking about are the ones you should make, because the ones that you don't think about are just going to disappear naturally anyway, you know. And it's such a great point. Just make the ideas that inspire you, the ones you can't stop thinking about. Don't push an idea that's not really interesting you or isn't occupying much space in your brain, you know. So I found that quote has stuck with me. I heard that quote years ago, and it's really just stuck with me since then. um and I think I'll leave you guys with that little piece of fun little writing knowledge. I'm sure most people watching this are probably writers themselves, or at least involved in the arts somehow, I'm sure. So, guys, I'll leave you there. Thank you as always for listening. This was a fun one, kind of loose and silly. Well, kind of a bit more serious towards the end. They're talking about these freaking movies moving my heart. But other than that, this is good fun. Thank you as always for listening or watching it or both. I mean, you definitely listen, because this would be very unsatisfying to just watch on mute, me just move my mouth around. But hey, I don't know what you're into. Whatever way I can entertain. Until then, I will see you all real soon. And good evening, have a good night, good morning, whenever you're listening to this. But for now, it's over. Don't get sad. You can play it from the very beginning if you want. I won't hold it against you. Goodbye.